Hi, I'm Lisa Neff-Wheeler. I've lived in New Jersey the majority of my life. I've lived in the Hillsborough, Montgomery, New Jersey area for over 30 years. I love living here. The area has maintained its country feel while having the conveniences of a more urban area. I look forward to sharing why I love the area and the local businesses. Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Lisa Neff-Wheeler, Realtor with Coldwell Banker Realty, and I'm here today with Sophie Schnitzlein. Sophie is the owner of Live Lively Yoga. Live Lively Yoga focuses on creating a client-specific approach for individuals with autism, mental, physical, and intellectual disabilities. So I've really been looking forward to meeting you.
Likewise.
Understanding how your method is different than others. And to our audience, my brother was actually friends with Sophie's dad when they went to high school together. So it's nice kind of connecting the dots. So have you been?
Good. I've been good. Excited to be here. Excited to talk to you.
Yeah, great. So why don't you start first by describing your business?
Sure. So Live Lively Yoga is a comprehensive yoga method that incorporates social emotional learning, functional movement, embodiment, and a sense of celebration and empowerment. So we're focused around creating an inclusive and adaptable atmosphere, like you said earlier, for people with developmental, intellectual, and physical disability.
So talk a little bit about your journey and your history to start the business.
Yeah, so I took my first yoga class when I was 14, and I have severe anaphylactic allergies, so oftentimes when I was younger, I didn't feel in control of my breath or body. I was constantly kind of struggling to get a breath with asthma and everything like that. And when I took my first yoga class, I was overcome by this feeling of autonomy, I would say, and empowerment. And I was thinking, I wish everyone could feel this way. It was a newfound feeling for myself. And that feeling is what kicked off my journey with yoga. And my personal journey led me to create this method because I noticed that the people that need to feel this way always don't have access to yoga. Many people think of yoga as a physical practice, when in reality it's more about embodiment, connecting to your breath, feeling centered, and kind of cultivating this feeling of celebration and empowerment.
That's interesting because I go towards the physical aspect of yoga, and I have a very tight body, so I'm I don't know if I like this.
I know, and that's what everyone thinks. Everyone thinks of yoga as this rigorous physical, or the asana portion, which means posture, when really it incorporates pranayama, which is breath work, kind of like a holistic lifestyle, being more aware of your actions with other people, actions with the environment. So it really encompasses everything.
That's awesome. So what made you decide to open the business? You talked about the why of yoga and how it was important to you, but opening a business is a brave thing to do.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how you came to that decision.
Sure. So I have over 720 hours of formal training, and within my trainings, I noticed that they all kind of lacked a sense of accessibility to a greater population. I believe yoga should be accessible to anyone, for everyone, all the time, and kind of the how was when I was in Peru studying at an ashram. I had this idea. I was I'm learning for fully able-bodied people, but there's nothing here that I'm learning for people with disabilities, people that maybe can't stand up and do tree pose, maybe people that getting down on the ground on a yoga mat isn't accessible. And really what sparked this was just the accessibility gap. There was really no aspect of yoga being accessible through my trainings and through all of that. So I decided to take the leap and kind of piece together all the pieces I found that were most useful, I would say, and most applicable, and create Live Lively.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it definitely was quite the journey. At first I was kind of nervous to create it because I was is it going to catch on? There's nothing really like this. But creating this and seeing the impact that it has nothing has been better than it, honestly.
You're an entrepreneur at a very young age. So you described a little bit about the why of why people with disabilities, but you deal with the physical, you talk more about the physical aspect. So talk a little bit more about, the autistic, the, mental challenges that those folks have, and why you focus this
for
to
sure.
that population.
So cognitive function in individuals that have disabilities can vary greatly.
Yeah.
Something specific that is really, I think, just empowering and celebratory about Live Lively is that we focus the session with these 7 aspects. So breathing, kind self-talk, healthy movement, nature and yoga, yoga shapes, yoga sounds, and relaxations to kind of alter and adapt to specific needs. So every class will look different. And with the kind of like cognitive function aspect, we incorporate social and emotional learning. So through every yoga class, we meet the client where they're at to create a session specifically for them. And that's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah.
So while I was in North Carolina, I used to teach at kind of like a at-home care facility for adults ages 28 to, I think the oldest there was 80.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Most of them were physically impaired, in wheelchairs, paralyzed from the waist or shoulder down. Cognitive function was varied throughout.
Right.
But creating these adaptable yoga practices and classes to meet them where they're at had such an impact, because it's very rare that you find something where someone's going to sit there with you and walk you through it.
Yeah.
And meet you like where you're at.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So do you typically teach like in those type of environments, or do you go to homes or yoga studios? Talk a little bit about the where.
So where is at-home private sessions. I've done school sessions, like in public schools. I actually am doing a few this summer for their summer program, which is really exciting.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I do in-facility sessions as well. So that can look like at an accessible playground. There's actually one in Toms River called Field of Dreams. And it's,
I heard about that.
Yeah, it's such an awesome place. I'm there every Monday. Or every other Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, I worked for Children's Specialized Hospital, and they are down there, and they got involved with that as part of it, because it was for kids that were born with challenges, but also had due to injury, traumatic brain injury. So they got involved with that. It was a pretty cool place.
Owned by Robert Wood Johnson.
Yeah, because Children's Specialized is now part of Robert Wood.
Yeah. So we go everywhere, at home, in facility, nursing homes, specialized care centers, but mainly it's at home sessions, private one-on-ones.
So you talked about kind of your yoga teaching philosophy of reaching folks where they are. Any other aspects of your philosophy?
I would say celebration and empowerment. We're all worthy to feel healthy and happy in our bodies. We're all worthy of kind self-talk. And I really like to convey that message of we need to celebrate our well-being. We need to celebrate we're here. We need to celebrate our abilities, our goals, our mental mindset. And that's not something that we do every day.
No, especially lately, we really don't.
I mean, negative self-talk is so prevalent in day-to-day life. Like, oh, I can't do this. Oh, I'm tired. But what if we switched the narrative? What if, look at all these things I can do. Look at what I'm learning. Look at these goals I have. So I would say my overall philosophy is making yoga accessible to everyone and really adapting the practice to meet people's needs, because yoga isn't necessarily what you do on the mat. It's what you can take off of the mat.
Yeah. Now, a lot of yoga studios, they have little tiny pieces of that where it's, the mind-body connection, but it seems like, and I'm making an assumption, so call me on it, it seems like you focus more so on that than the physical aspect. You do physical, but you focus more on the mental, it seems to me.
So like I said earlier, people think of yoga as a physical practice, the asana practice, when in reality there's breath work, pranayama, that connection. Everything you do is connected to your yoga practice, essentially. And like there's 8 limbs of yoga, and every limb is essentially like a guideline to abide by and live by. And something that I kind of like to incorporate into my practice and teach to other people is this aspect of tapas. And tapas is your passion. It's like what fuels your fire. It's like what energizes you, makes you happy. And if you just go along and base your day on tapas, like what fuels you, what makes you feel good, you're practicing yoga there.
Yeah.
And that's more of like the Western mindset of yoga is this intensely physical practice that can only be done in a studio on a mat, when in reality, it's all cohesive.
Wow, you're teaching me lots today. So talk a little bit about what it was like when you started the business.
So when I started the business, I was working I've always taught at a ton of studios. Many studios don't have an accessibility option, like a special needs class. It's all like power flow, stuff like that generally. Yeah. And I always did special needs yoga on the side, generally private sessions. But the first session I ever taught yoga was a special needs session, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was really before I had any certification. I was 15, and someone's mom came up to me and was like, I know you like to do yoga, do you think you can help me? And like kind of share this, and I was like, sure. And it was so impactful and so, I mean, it was like nothing I've ever taught before. It was just such a beautiful moment. And with that in my mind, like that being my foundation, starting my business just allowed me to like reach such a more, just like a greater clientele, I would say, and make a bigger impact. To do this fully and full time has been really beautiful.
Now, how do you balance the, because I'm a business owner, so how do you balance that? You have to work on the business. You have to market yourself. You have to do all the finances. You got to do the taxes. You got to do all that good stuff, as well as and I'm making an assumption, so call me on it. It's you that are also doing what you totally love.
Yeah.
How do you do all that and then also have a life outside of your job?
Yeah, I mean, me, myself, and I, we're a power team. So I actually moved back in with my dad to focus on the business full time, because starting the business while working full time, it was just way too hectic. And I was like, how can I put myself in a position where I can serve the most people while fueling myself, the tapas. And through that, I end up working a lot, almost like, feels like 24/7 sometimes. Yeah. But I make intentional time to like self-care and refuel myself, because you have to, like, doing this work, it can be very draining because you're working so closely with people and the emotional attachment that goes along with it. You have to fill your own cup before filling other people's cups. So I treat it like a work day. I work 8 hours, sometimes like 12 hours a day on this, and then I create intentional time for like self-care. And that's something that's really hard to balance, especially in like mental health care and like everyone's life. The burnout rate is so high, like social worker, mental health professional, even like business professionals, burnout rate is like skyrocketing now.
Because with COVID, I was in healthcare before I, started doing this, and there was this balance of work was work, life was life, and you could get away from it. Now I think with the working at home and everyone's on the, every piece of technology, everyone just expects you're on continuously. And it just, I like have to turn it off. I just can't, because it's like, I call it the drug,
It is.
You hear bing, 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 and it's like, gotta do it. So you're right. You probably have, because of that, do you have more demand for your services?
I would say so. Yeah. Definitely. Especially how everything kind of meshes together. Like, I practice yoga a lot in my free time. And sometimes I have to be like, am I actually practicing yoga, or am I just doing it to do it? Yeah. Is this like, am I practicing or am I working right now? Yeah. Finding the fine line between that. And even with the burnout rate being so high and people like at home, it's like you need to unplug at some point. Yeah. And you need to rest and restore and take the yoga you're doing on the mat, off the mat, maybe do some breathing, turn off the phone,
Yeah, that's crazy. So, what goals do you have for the next year?
So my goals are to create a more inclusive atmosphere here in like the Montgomery, Hillsborough, Princeton area. This specific area is really lacking in accessibility for yoga and wellness. There's yoga studios in abundance.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah,
they're everywhere.
I know, and I want to bring this Live Lively yoga into those studios, create a community, and build a foundation, because there is a big community for yoga in this area, but from what I've noticed, is there is not a big accessible yoga community.
Yeah.
And kind of bridging that gap, it would be my main goal. And
would you do your own studio to do that?
That's the goal.
That's the long-term
goal.
Gotcha.
Is I would love to open up my own studio and have like a big outdoor center that focuses on nature connection and yoga, mindfulness, embodiment, self-power. But that is in the future, and here we are now. So the goals for now would be to just really create that sense of community, continue offering classes and workshops, and going to the facilities like Field of Dreams and the public schools. And I also have my social media that I keep up with. I offer like free yoga sessions on there, free recorded yoga classes. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And even on Instagram, I have tons of like breathwork practices, kind of worksheets, and I also offer ways to teach accessible yoga. So a yoga teacher they can have tons of training, but unless you take a specialized yoga training, you don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
It's just you don't have that information, and I offer that information to help teach more accessible.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So, anything exciting going on that you want the community or the broader public to know about?
Yeah, so I've been building my social media presence, so we've got a lot of exciting stuff on there. Field of Dreams is every other Monday, and I'm going to start offering more public classes in the Montgomery area.
Where would the public classes be?
We're still trying to get the location squared away, but when they're offered, it'll be on social media. Hopefully the Township will help market. Yeah. Well,
Sophie, thanks so much for your time
of course,
today.
Thank you.
I'm very inspired about you found your passion young, and it's clear you're very passionate about your passion.
Thank you.
It's been great learning more about you and spending some time on this nice deck.
Yeah.
And to our audience, thanks for watching. Once again, I'm Lisa Neff-Wheeler, realtor with Coldwell Banker Realty, and if you have a business that you would like to be featured, please call me at 732-267-1204. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.